starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon. We have a lot coming up today, so let's get started with a glimpse of the day's highlights. Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho hints there's no more room for extra stimulus until early next year, saying that the government has run out of viable fiscal measures. Virtual reality may soon be coming to clothing stores near you, transforming how people shop as Korea aims to become a global powerhouse in augmented and virtual reality. These stories and more coming right up. But first, Korea's transport minister has called on the nation's cargo union to immediately withdraw its general strike. In strong remarks, Minister Kang Ho-in named the strike as an unjustifiable group act that goes against the nation's efforts for job creation and citizens' well-being. He also emphasized that it negatively affects the domestic economy while apologizing to the public for any inconvenience caused. The Korean Cargo Workers Union began the strike early this morning, protesting the government's new set of policies that were designed to enhance logistical efficiency. It claims, in particular, that the government's decision to ease regulations on the adjustment of freight supply and demand will only lower freight charges and eventually affect small and mid-sized operators. At least 4,000 workers are estimated to be taking part, but no major logistics disturbances have been reported yet. And we're looking at quite a different stance on ways to improve the Korean economy. The country's finance minister says there's no room for further government spending, but that a rate cut could help spur growth. On the other hand, the BOK governor seems to think the very opposite. Our Shin Se-min explains.
There's not much room left for additional fiscal measures. These were words from Korea's top economic policymaker before reporters in Washington, where he's attending conferences hosted by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho said there will not be any further government spending plans unless variables immediately come into play. He added that the government has already laid out expansionary fiscal policies by drawing up a supplementary budget, expanding next year's fiscal spending, and committing an extra $9 billion by year's end. But when it comes to monetary policy, the minister suggested he has quite a different outlook. In an earlier statement, he said although low key rates have led to a rise in household debt, the current amount is still manageable, hinting there's more room for easing. But it appears this sentiment is not quite shared with Korea's top central banker. BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol, who's also attending the same economic gatherings, said that while there's still room for additional rate cuts, monetary policy alone cannot prop up the economy. He also said there's more room to expand fiscal policies as Korea is in the top tiers when it comes to fiscal soundness. Korea's central bank will make its monthly rate announcement this Thursday at a time when a potential U.S. rate hike is adding more pressure for further rate adjustments. The current rate stands at an all-time low of 1.25%, but there are still great concerns that more easing would exacerbate the household debt load that stands at over $1.1 trillion as of the end of June. Shin Se-min, Business Daily.
Korea and Japan's business leaders gathered here in Seoul for their annual meeting this morning to further boost economic cooperation. Represented by Chairman Ho Chang-soo, the Federation of Korean Industries, and the delegation of Japan Business Federation led by Sadayuki Sakakibara, vowed greater cooperation to beef up trade and youth exchanges and to jointly enter third countries. Sitting down with the business leaders at Cheongwade later in the afternoon, President Park Geun-hye asked for greater support towards denuclearizing North Korea, as peace on the Korean peninsula will offer greater business opportunities for both Korea and Japan. The vice chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve has pointed to the central bank remaining on track for a rate hike before this year ends, citing solid economic figures. Speaking at the annual meeting of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank in Washington on Sunday, Stanley Fischer said steady progress on jobs, continued growth, and faith that inflation will rise towards the Fed's 2% target has set the stage for policymakers to raise rates in December. However, Fischer said the economic outlook is inherently uncertain and that the Fed's assessment of the appropriate path could shift in response to changes to the outlook and its associated risks. U.S. interest rates are currently between 0.25 and 0.5%. Foreign investors continue to snap up Korean shares in a buying spree that's lasted for 4 straight months. Overseas investors net purchased 1.6 trillion won worth of Korean shares, or $1.4 billion in September. Korea's Financial Supervisory Service says that as of the end of last month, foreign investors owned over $420 billion worth of listed shares, close to the record high of over $420 billion set in April of last year. Foreign investment accounted for 30.5% of the overall market cap, logging the same amount as in August. The Korean equity market last week closed with a slight uptick, but the Kospi failed to break through the 2100 mark once again. And external uncertainties still seem to be affecting the market. We're now joined by our markets contributor, Choi Jin-seok, to talk more about market conditions and what to expect this week. Hello, Jin-seok.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start off with today's market close. How are the numbers looking on the first trading of the week?
The Kospi market didn't move much, closing at 2056.82, up 0.15% compared to the previous session. While the Kosdaq fell by 0.1% to close at 674.74. The Kospi opened the first session of the week with a slight downtick due to sharp declines of blue chip stocks, including Samsung Electronics, and the fact that the U.S. stock market was weak on Friday also spooked investor sentiment. But it soon recovered, helped by institutional investors who bought massive amounts of shares. In the end, the market lost its momentum again, but managed to close in positive territory.
All right, so how was last week's overall market performance then? I mean, definitely Friday's market definitely lowered expectations for a further rally once again.
On a weekly basis, the Kospi market rose by 0.5%, while the Kosdaq fell by 0.7%. The Kospi market had enjoyed a decent rally of 1.1% throughout Thursday, but Friday's drop lowered expectations for a further rally above 2100 once again. Retail investors were the only net buyer last week, while foreigners and institutional investors unloaded shares. Sectors were mixed, as was sentiment among foreign investors. For example, share prices of Samsung Group went up as offshore investors picked up those stocks. When it comes to the internet sector in the Kosdaq market, which foreign investors bought as well, it enjoyed a 2% rally despite headwinds on the market's biotechnology sector.
So looking back on Friday, the U.S. employment report showed mixed signals in the labor market, but there's still the possibility of seeing a rate hike within this year. So with all that, what events should investors take a closer look at in this regard and also in general?
Exactly. The U.S. labor market created 156,000 jobs last month, failing to meet expectations of about 170 or 180,000 job gains. However, wage growth in September was at 2.6% compared to last year, rebounding almost to pre-recession levels. And that's why investors can't be so sure that the Federal Reserve will not pull the trigger this year because of weak labor market conditions. In this regard, the September FOMC minutes unveiled on Wednesday are expected to draw a lot of attention from market participants. The Fed kept its interest rates on hold at the September meeting, but the minutes will show us what conversations were actually held during the meeting. Also this week, Fed Chair Janet Yellen will deliver a speech on Friday, and locally, the Bank of Korea, or the BOK, will hold its policy meeting on Thursday, and experts are mostly leaning towards an interest rate freeze.
And the U.S. earnings season will kick off this week. So what are the expectations on that?
Aluminum company Alcoa will kick off the earnings season in the Q3 with its quarterly results announced on Tuesday local time. And major U.S. banks, including Citigroup, JP Morgan, and Wells Fargo, will follow on Friday. The overall picture, though, doesn't seem to be that positive. Market research firm FactSet said for Q3, the estimated earnings declines for S&P 500 companies is minus 2.1%. So if the index reports another decline in earnings for Q3, it will mark the first time it has logged 6 consecutive quarters of year-on-year declines in earnings since the firm began tracking data in Q3 2008.
And another interesting development that we saw last week was global oil prices going up to $50 a barrel for the first time in 4 months.
Right.
So investors now seem to be quite interested in future trends in commodity prices, right?
Exactly. November oil futures settled back under the $50 a barrel level on Friday, but still scored their third weekly gain in a row, reflecting expectations for production cuts. WTI had settled Thursday at a roughly 4-month high of $50.44. Because of this, oil prices and the global energy sector may serve as a positive catalyst in global stock markets as well. But investors still need to be rather cautious because experts do not bet on a sharp rebound in the short term, citing continued supply gluts and U.S. shale oil inventories. While the oil market is seen as a bright spot, the foreign exchange market is where investors need to brace for extreme volatility. The British pound once fell 6.3% in early Asian trading last Friday. A sharp decline or drop in the sterling could pose threats throughout other asset markets.
All right, thank you so much for that. And we'll be hearing from you again on Friday.
Anytime.
One of the biggest hassles about clothes shopping is not just finding the right outfit, but trying things on in the process. But now, technologies like augmented reality can change the way you shop. Our Lee Ju-young has more.
Trying on clothes these days can just take a matter of seconds. With the flick of a button, customers can virtually switch into their next outfit of choice with this augmented reality mirror, stress-free and hassle-free.
You need to see if the clothes look good on you, but since I can try them on virtually, it's incredibly convenient.
Along with the virtual fitting software FX Mirror, this lifelike avatar, also developed by augmented reality startup FX Gear, lets users see what they would look like in different clothing, hair, accessories, and makeup when shopping online.
We've developed avatars to overcome the fact that consumers can't try on clothes when shopping online.
Even one of Korea's leading department stores, Lotte, has ventured into the world of augmented reality by co-developing a foot scanner, which helps shoppers seek out the perfect pair of custom footwear.
Customers would feel embarrassed when we measure their feet. This new technology is very popular since we can easily measure with accuracy.
These developments come as the government looks to expand the country's augmented and virtual reality markets so that it accounts for about 5% of the global market share by 2025. That would put it at roughly $4 billion. It also says it plans to nurture up to 50 firms specializing in the technology over 5 years by creating an optimal environment for firms working to transform people's existing perceptions of reality. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
Well, coffee here in Korea is becoming more than just a caffeine fix, spawning a new culture of its own. As coffee entrepreneurs try to differentiate themselves from the competition, they're creating new experiences and stories with their cup of joe. Our Eunice Kim explains.
It may look like a clothing store, but from one corner, the aroma of dark coffee wafts out. This lifestyle curated shop fuses shopping and drinking coffee together. Not only that, the manufacturer of the shoes on display for every pair sold makes a donation to a poor country. And they've extended that philosophy to the coffee.
Just like our shoes, for every cup of coffee our customer buys, we donate 1 liter of water. We've widened our reach.
Even at this bike shop or this furniture store, people passing through can enjoy a cup of joe. Studying the accessories and unique tools on the wall, they can learn the history of a brand.
I came to see furniture, but the decor items are nice and the coffee, delicious.
Competing against these novelty cafes, traditional coffee houses are placing their bets on the quality of the roast. This Starbucks Reserve not only features rare coffee beans, but the baristas also recount the stories behind the beans as a customer's drink is being prepared. More cafes are building partnerships with world-famous baristas too, in pushing out new products.
The first generation was instant coffee, the second generation, average beans, and now we're evolving into a specialty coffee market. We're collaborating with star baristas to maximize the beans' properties.
As the domestic coffee market matures with the times, Koreans are enjoying an extra special cup of coffee with the onset of autumn. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
And that does it for today. Thanks for watching. I will be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.